All right, Big Show. Obviously, your biggest themes and takeaways from yesterday's games, Ross. Lots to dissect, and we'll go in depth at each of these in a little bit. But what stood out to you the most?
Actually, kind of a bunch of themes this week, Bri, which is interesting because there were only two games. I mean, some of the ones that jump out to me. How about the road team winning both games? You know, we had talked so much last week. My theme last week had been the home teams and how much of an advantage the bye is and playing at home. It almost feels like maybe the advantage was more about the bye than it was about home field advantage because both the Patriots and the Rams got unbelievably impressive victories on the road. And yes, there's a lot of details of both that we need to get into, some good, some not so good. But ultimately, for those teams to even be in position to win those games the way they did, it is awfully, awfully impressive, especially because the crowd noise was off the chain in both. I mean, the crowd noise was crazy. The Superdome was like shaking. You could tell that. The Arrowhead, I was on the sidelines. It was, yes, freezing, but it was also, man, I mean, it was really, really loud. And I know that because I have a volume thing for my headset. I had to crank it up all the way to be able to hear Kevin Kugler and Tony Baselli on their call of the game. I mean, that's how high I had to crank it up just to give you an indication of how loud it was at Arrowhead. So crowd noise was a big factor in both games. Seemed like it was more of a factor for the Rams because I don't know why they were trying to audible plays with a young quarterback like Goff early in the game. That was kind of crazy to me. I didn't really get that. That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but it didn't end up hurting them so much that they couldn't come back to win the game. The away teams winning both. Both games go to overtime, which is prompting some people to talk about changing the overtime rules. It's interesting, though. They're only saying that about the AFC Championship game because Mahomes didn't get to come back on the field. They're not saying it about the NFC Championship game where both teams got to come on the field. So which one is it? And I've told you before, I thought sudden death overtime was fine. I also think, if you went to the college rules, that's fine. I don't like what I think is the half-measure convoluted current NFL overtime rules. Not a big fan of it. So questionable calls, obviously a big part of these games. And lots of reviews. The New Orleans Saints call, the missed pass interference call, it's really a shame. It's really, to me, it's a shame for everybody involved. I feel bad for those officials. And yes, it's their job, but you know what? A lot of us mess up at our jobs from time to time. It's just not as visible as a player or a coach, or in this case, as an official. Those guys put a lot of time in. They don't want to mess up. They don't want to be the reason why one team's going to the Super Bowl and not the other. So while everybody just wants to crush that guy, those guys, there's two of them, they have to live with that. And that's got to be hard. Really hard. That's the last thing they want. They didn't get into it to be the reason why a team won or lost. And so I have compassion for those guys. I really do. They're trying to do their best job. It was an awful, awful missed call. But I continue to blame the NFL league office for not making that reviewable. That is the problem in my mind. Look at the review of like the Edelman muffed punt or the two Hogan catches, right? I mean, those reviews proves the value of replay. It does. It proves the value of replay. I think they got all three of those right. Two of them they had to overturn. So that's significant in that situation in the game. Yet there's nothing they can do about the missed pass interference call or even the Chris Jones roughing the passer on Brady. That was a terrible call. Nobody likes to see bad calls. And here's the thing. I feel bad for that official, like I said. feel awful for Saints players. That might be, for a lot of them, their only chance to ever get to a Super Bowl. That might be it. You know, my guy Alex Anzalone from my hometown, Wyomissing, Pennsylvania, that might be his only chance. You never know. And even Saints fans, obviously terrible. And even the Rams on some level, because it cheapens what they've accomplished and it kind of puts an asterisk on what they did. And that's not fair to them either, because they were down 13-0. They battled back. It was really impressive what they did. So it stinks, I personally think, for everybody involved. And frankly, I'd like to send a lot of them flowers to make them feel better, especially the officials and Saints fans.